The focus of this talk is about the last section of research paper, which is the discussion and conclusion. We have discussed introduction, methodology, and a result section of a research paper. And this talk is going to be focused on how to develop discussion and conclusion section of a paper where we are going to be discuss about how to outline, how to flow these discussions, and the different thematic areas we need to be consider while we're writing discussion and conclusions, including the research limitations. So we have already discussed about the introduction, how to develop introduction section of the paper. We also developed the results. And in our last video, we discussed about the layout of the method section. And now we are going to be discuss about the different components and the flow of the discussion section for this paper. So as you know that this paper is, we are talking about the geospatial mapping of solar potential at the building footprint level, and it's undergraduate level research paper, a research project, which we are converting into a manuscript. So there are a number of students involved in this paper, and we are talking about a different section of the paper, and this video is about the discussions. So in the discussion, we need to be, if we go to the discussion section, so that is the usually the last section after introduction, methods, and then we have results. So finally, we will entering into the discussions. Let's start the discussion. Could you please make a discussion section and zoom to that area, and let's talk about the flow of discussions. Okay, so usually in the paper we have a four section, but the fifth one could be included. That is usually we call conclusions. So some cases you want to be combine those both sections, discussion and the conclusions. So I would suggest we need to be combine these two sections at this stage, and we will see when we write up this section whether we need a separate section for the conclusions or not. So in the discussion, usually the very first thing is we need to remind the reader the main objective of this research paper. So we need to rewrite our objectives. So here we just need to be say like the primary purpose is twofold. First, estimating the polar potential at the building footprint level, and then we are going to be identifying some areas where the efforts can be, or where those areas can be focused for different kind of interventions and government support and the promotion and campaigns. Okay, so this is the kind of things we can rewrite, and here you need to make sure you're not going to copy paste your objective in from the introduction section. You need to be rephrase it. Fine. That is the main point. So usually people like students that what they try to do is they use the same text again and again. So we need to be make it a little bit different style. So in the discussion, because you are going to be start a discussion, so you need to be make your impression how you will open. You start with your opening sentence. So that's the way you will rephrase it and make it more comfortable with your and reminding your starting with your objectives to remind the readers. Okay, so that's the
Yes,
first thing. Now the most important thing in the conclusion is your main outcomes. So next paragraph, if you go to the next line, so what we are going to be discuss about our key findings. Fine. So main outcome, key findings, and the point of the discussion which you want to make. So first thing is let's discuss about what are our key finding in this case. So Sitar, what you think? You know the results.
uh, yes,
We
yes.
know the our objectives. So what is the key finding in your point of view?
Sir, there could be two type of finding that we have so far. We have like we can just tell the policymakers that these category of houses can be targeted. Like for instance, if 6 to 10 Malda houses have more potential, we can just say that you have to perform the campaigns just to install solar panels on those houses. Second is we have a broader result, like we have a result of union council. So we can ask the policymakers that you can concentrate on these councils because these have more potential. So there are two findings of our research.
Okay, so Abdullah, what you think you about your point of view about the main finding of this research? You are, I believe you are familiar with the results. Okay, so maybe Yusuf can you can say something if you wanna what you understand
Sir,
about
the
our
main
yeah.
yes, sir. The main finding is that we just simply get an understanding of how solar energy can be useful in our northern parts of Pakistan for producing electricity and for helping lives there which are affected from short of electricity in aspects.
Okay,
That's
so
the main finding.
any other point?
Hi, I'm sorry, my laptop got stuck. Yeah,
No.
I think the same.
Okay,
The main
Abdullah,
findings were
hold on 1 minute. Just let Yusuf finish it.
okay. Sure.
Sir,
Yusuf.
I'm finished, sir. I
Okay,
finished.
okay, thank you.
You can
And
continue.
Abdullah, what you think about our main or key findings of this research based on the results we have so far?
Yeah, the main finding is basically that where we can plant the solar panels in our study area, and that's the main thing that we wanted to achieve, and that's our main objective. And we have already specified that through the maps and through the tables that I mentioned in the results section.
Hmm.
So I think that's pretty much it. That's the main key finding of this paper and of our work.
Okay. So let's start discuss few things like the different possibilities, different outcomes which we have based on the results. So what the results are telling us, if you go back to the first table, and let's see what the first table is giving us. So first table is giving us a range of number of units can be produced. So we have about 33%, 32% of the building footprints. They can be produce a kind of number of units which we can say, okay, that's enough. If we propose some building, some family to use a building for their rooftop and cover with a solar panel, they can get a sufficient number of units based on their based on the what's called is the angle with the sun.
Yes.
Okay, so that is the major finding is how many building footprints you have. About what percentage, Satar?
Sir, around 34% buildings are
34.
more suitable
So
for us.
this is your first bullet line. So only 34% buildings you are proposing in this whole study area. Fine. So
Yes, sir.
that's kind of the first thing you want to make. It's not every building in this region can generate. Fine. So now it's a big caution. It's not a very large number as compared in terms of percentage, which is 34% of the total buildings are basically look like to be more generate a sufficient number of units of electricity which can based on the household needs. Okay,
Yes, sir.
so this
Yes.
is a big number. So first you need to remind you're not going to get like large number of building footprints which can be like you can easily install. So why we are running this study? First thing, usually people think, oh yeah, solar energy can be like is everywhere. You don't
Yes.
need to really estimate it. Which building, rooftop really need to be eligible. So that's the way we are seeing the surge of the solar panels in Pakistan because of the short of electricity, and everybody wants to be have a solar panel. Fine.
Yes, sir.
So if they don't do the proper proper homework, or the proper estimation. So after investing that big money, they will come to know like they are not getting the sufficient number of units.
Yes, sir.
So this is one of the way. So in the mountainous region, so if they follow the large urban areas, which is normally a flat, kind of like within the local geography, they are a more plain geography. But
Yes, sir.
in the mountainous region, if they try to copy them without thinking, without like having a proper estimation or assessment, they could be they could making a mistake like wrong investments.
Yes, sir.
So the second thing is we need to be that's the first point I will say this study will give us a number which we can discuss about like the 34% about 34% of the building in this region is kind of qualify for the rooftop solar panel.
Yes,
So the second point is size of the buildings. So now size of the building can be used as a proxy for your affordability. So the large houses usually show the more rich people. They can afford this kind of investment. And then the small size of the houses usually shows a like middle range of the like income range. So
okay,
that's we
sir.
need to be very careful if they make a wrong decision, so they will be ended up in a financial crisis because it's a huge investment in the one huge one-time investment.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it means now what we're trying to do is we telling the government or the planner, decision makers who are encouraging the people to go for the solar panels. So we're telling them where you need to be start your campaign, fine, and then who really need it. So if the small building footprints are more frequent, let's go back to the same table again. And now we will see the size of the buildings. Okay, so now in the unit, if you see the 66%, no, not the 66. So 0.85 million buildings are under the 5 Marla area. Fine, out of
Yes,
1.3 million, in other words, roughly. So what the
mm-hmm.
percentage is out of that? For 66%?
Yes, sir.
So 66% buildings are basically small size houses. Okay, so 6
Yes,
to
sir.
10 marlas or 11 to 15 marlas, there could be a average. So size of the households, and then we can see the next is 16 and above could be a large households,
Okay.
farmhouses and those kind of things. Fine. So now
Yes,
you
sir.
see the 66%, and if I add 19% in together, so that become about
85.
75%, approximately 75% of the building footprints are a relatively small size. Okay.
Okay.
So
Yes,
this
sir.
is the way we will see, and then we will see. So it means if we are those people who are living eligible, so let's see the eligible buildings. If we want to see the 750 and onward units, that you want to see how many number of buildings are there out of it. So you need to get those statistics, and
Yes,
when
sir.
you are going to be discussed in the discussions, you need to be talking about that number.
Okay.
Okay, so this is
Yes,
the
sir.
way you were giving a snapshot about the who actually like we you propose like 32% of the total buildings or 34% of the total buildings. So how the buildings are distributed into the size. So
Okay, sir.
we use a size. Size is basically when we're talking about the size, it's more in results. But here we will use a size in terms of the affordability and what kind of people we are thinking it or the population groups. So this is the way the results are discussions are more in terms of like making a kind of the way we can use that results, how you interpret it. It's
Yes, sir.
not you use the same way you are using the same terminologies in results. So now you're saying those 34% of the building footprints. So you can divide them in by the affordability, in other words, like your proxy indicator. We don't have exact information, but you can see by looking the size of the building footprints, we can assume, we can assess, we can have a guess, or we can like have a rough estimate about their affordability. Fine.
Mm-hmm.
If the
Yes,
large
sir.
number of peoples or large number of building footprint out of 34% of the eligible buildings are not affording it.
Yes, sir.
So now the point is how what we are going to suggest. So this is the point of the discussions, what we are going to do that. So we are asking the government to step in.
Mm-hmm.
We are asking the local governments. We are going to ask the provincial government. We got to ask the federal government. We are other international donors to give them share these results and tell them there is a need, but most of the population cannot afford it. So now, if you go back to the Sustainable Development Goals, and I think the goal number 7 is electricity, energy. So you need to remind as a part of that goal,
Mm-hmm.
it's a mandatory for each and every country to take care of their population and
Yes, sir.
ensure the accessible, affordable, fine
Yes, sir.
electricity, access to
Mm-hmm.
those, and renewable as well.
Mm-hmm.
So these
Yes,
are
sir.
the challenges. So now this is the way you want to be discussed about why you talking about affordability here.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. Why
Mm-hmm.
you talking about accessibility here? Why are you talking about the renewable energy? So these are the three things you discuss in the introduction. So
Mm-hmm.
now
Yes,
you are
sir.
going to be connect that in introduction things here, where you're talking about the affordability in terms of the population's household size, and use as the proxy because we don't have a household level data,
Yes,
income
sir.
data, but we can use a union council level estimates. So the good
Mm-hmm.
thing is we have a proportion of the eligible households at the union council levels. And if in some case in the
Mm-hmm.
future research find the union council level socioeconomic status of the
Mm-hmm.
population, that can correlate it. They can establish our point. At this stage, we are just using the size of the building as a proxy to make a point. And at this stage, what we're seeing is my hinge is I think we 34% total building footprints, and out of those, 1 to 5 marla and even 6 to 10 marla size buildings are a
Mm-hmm.
large proportion.
Mm-hmm.
So it means people those are living in that neighborhood in Union Council, they might need some support.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes, sir.
that's the point we are going to be generate in the discussions, how the government and public and private organization can support to the population that live in those areas.
Yes, sir. Fine.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
so this is the way we will discuss about the generation discussion about that key points. So
Okay.
my understanding is if you are me, I'm just proposing the different ideas how we can start the discussions and folding it. And now the next part of the discussion is to further narrow down. Once we establish
Mm-hmm.
these points, now we want to be go a little bit more, help them to identify the areas. Okay, how many
Okay.
they are, how many union councils are by the districts. They want to know which district is more focused. So that's the way we have a result map. We need to be go back to the map and we see what results we are getting out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Okay. Yes, sir.
let's see the map. So before going to the map, I just wanna one more time wanna know Satar, Abdullah, and Yusuf from you. You have anything to add, or do you have different point of view, or if you're not getting my point, we can discuss it again.
No, sir. So far, I think we are going on a right path. We are just following the right things to do.
Okay, Abdullah,
Yeah, I agree as well.
Yusuf.
Sir, first I have a question that, sir, how much of a portion does discussion consist of in terms of words or size in comparison with the whole paper, research paper? That it
So
should be 20% or less than 20%. Like,
so usually the what we generally see the four sections. So we try to be equally divide. So there are different
okay.
size of the manuscripts. So some journals ask you to provide 4,000 words maximum. Some say 6,000. Some oppose the number of pages, and they will tell you the font size and the margin of the paper. So that then you have to be provide accordingly. So based on the experience, I would say like 1000 to 15 or 1600 words will be sufficient. So if you're targeting a full paper, 6000 words excluding references and the table and figures, so we need about 1500 for each section. Fine. So
Okay.
some section could be like in case if I see the methodology could be uh, uh, like go accordingly. Results could be more small section. Introduction could be lengthy, could be go over
Hmm.
1500 words. But in the discussions is very tricky because it's depending on how much you need to be justify it. This is the selling
Okay.
point. Right? So why you're doing the research is basically is the most critical part is your discussions because there are different things you will get in the discussion sections. Okay, so we are just
Right.
talking about the key points, yeah, as so far. But we are going to be discuss like a lot of things in the discussions, how the discussion can be design or layout, and what is the advantage of those different part of the discussions.
Okay.
I would like, yeah, go on.
Yeah, you have anything, Abdullah?
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, I was just like to add a question that what about the problems faced during the methodology? Do we have to discuss them in the methodology section or the at the end in the discussion section?
I think it's better to be discussed in the discussion section. So that we usually call the limitations. So that's we will have a separate paragraph about the research limitations. So maybe you can write down, Satar, if in the next line the research or limitations. So we will discuss it. Okay.
Like the gaps which are left in our research or the error we face, something like that.
It's called the compromises we did.
Okay.
Right. So one of the proxy we use is the height of the building. We don't have an actual height of the building. Okay, if we
Okay.
assume all the buildings have a 5 meter height.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
so this is a limitation. So some building could be small, less height, or some will be more high. Fine, but the problem is we don't have a data. Okay,
Okay.
so if we want to be do the height of the building, but eventually that's the point for the next research. So if you somebody want to
Yeah.
be continue the research, they want to need to know which area they need to improve. Okay, so this is one of the point
Exactly.
which I've been trying to be established, like talking with you guys over different occasions. The main point of the research area, when you define your one of research area, so you need to see how you will be moving in that area in a different aspects. Like this paper is giving you, it's not the like we're giving everything, but we are establishing one thing. There is a sizable number of buildings in mountainous regions. They could benefit from the solar energy and they can avoid the delays in the electricity, like those breakdowns, and they can be have more affordability and because of the way the economy is, so they can have a cheaper electricity, and then at the same time they can support to the renewable energy challenge. How we can increase the size of the renewable energy into our total national consumption of the electricity or production of the electricity. Fine. So
Hmm.
this is the way. This is our purpose of this paper. But There are some challenges, so our estimates can be improved if if we address those limitations. So if we want to be repeat the same experiment, but the next time you will be having a actual building height. Okay, so this will be like somebody is going to do the same experiment, but if they have actual height, definitely their result will be a improved one. Maybe they have more than 35%, or maybe they have less than 35% of the building, total building in this region, which is in that. But where our assumption is that will not going to change the whole results of our study. Because if like if assumption can totally change our results, so it means our study is not reliable. So we not suggest the people to follow it. On the same side, we are saying this aspects cannot be make like 34 to the 64%, right? So this is the way we saying like it could be within plus minus 5% of the buildings, maybe maximum some cases it could be go maximum 10%. So it's still our results are reliable and useful. Okay, but there is a room for the improvement. Okay, so this is the way when we introduce the limitations, we want to be discuss about how our results could be interpreted in the those limitations. And then the next study, they can introduce the adjust the number of days when the sun is not available. Because this is the second limitation of our study is we are not looking a weather or those factors at this stage. So, but we know as a whole, like in 365 days, how many days on total the rain and cloud cover we have on average. So we can adjust that one at a large scale. We can adjust that number. So if we see like the 10% or 15% of the days are have a no sun or limited sun availability. So what we can do, we can adjust our number accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want more precise, where you are talking about month to month, weekly basis, total number of units you can produce, then definitely you need a 20 or 30-year average of the climate or weather related estimates, and then you want to see how it's going to be change your results. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yes.
this is the way you will be discuss these things in the limitations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other point?
No, sir.
Okay, so the main like going back to the discussions, so we need to be reintroduce our objectives, then we need to find the major main points we will discuss and connect with our introduction, because the introduction where you introduce the gap, where you're talking about too many so many things which you use to develop your own objectives. So now
Mm-hmm.
we need to be go back to your gap, research gap, and try to see how your research and your finding is going to fill that one. Okay, so this
Yes.
discussion is basically is you the point you raise in the introduction section, you are
Mm-hmm.
going to be provide answer to those questions.
Okay.
Okay, so you are
Okay.
not going to answer all of them, but the question you can answer which you committed as objectives. So
Mm-hmm.
you going to be established here. So you're going to be discuss those points, and going back to your introduction, you need to be read it again and see what the points you raised, why you need to do this study, and now you tell us how your research, your findings, your results are helping to address those issues.
Yes, sir. Fine.
Okay, this is the main purpose of the discussions. You need to be say you're not going to repeat the results, you are going
Mm-hmm.
to be actually giving the answers. So you're using that results to answer the question you raised in the introduction section.
Okay.
Okay, and
Okay.
now we already discussed the limitations, so that's the next thing we need to be discussed. So in between, we had a second objective, which is we're going to be discuss about the map. Let's go to the map first. Okay, so in this the map, what we are getting, we know in the results. So Satar, you describe the background of the map, how the legend is, you can read the legend, and how the
Mm-hmm.
distribution patterns are giving you more. So now, what is the message out of it? Okay,
So it is. So it has to. It is telling about the areas which are more suitable for solar panel installation.
okay. So can we point it out a district, for
Mm-hmm.
example, which is very suitable and which is not suitable, which has the most
Mm-hmm.
likely, which has less likely?
Yes, sir. So we can, like, if we visualize this map, it's clear from the map that Aptabad district has most suitable buildings, whereas Torda district has the least number of suitable buildings.
Yeah, and then the Swabi is also,
Yes, sir.
and a large part of the Bonaire is
Mm-hmm.
there too,
So
and
the pattern
somehow
with
the Shangla as
the
well too.
the pattern with the river is showing that it has the least number of legible buildings.
Yeah. So the first thing is we can say not all the areas, not all the districts have the equal opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Fine.
Yes,
Opportunities
sir.
varies from district to district, and then
Mm-hmm.
further from union council to union council. So
Mm-hmm.
within the district, it's not like they have all like have equal opportunity, and that is also varies. So
Yes,
now
sir.
we need to be, if we are targeting a, let's suppose through this research, we're suggesting um, some local governments, district governments. So we can identify few districts, and we can bring and make a new results, which is
Mm-hmm.
for based on that district, and try to be give them a maximum information. So if and convince them if they plan something for those areas, so most of the population will be beneficial from that project. So government
Mm-hmm.
should initiate something, encourage the donors, bring some businessman to encourage them to like introduce some solar panel in that, because transportation is a cost, installation you need installation per peoples, so they need to be facilitate the business. So to
Mm-hmm.
bring the cost down, and then they will need to introduce some like what is called the grants or some subsidies in some
Mm-hmm.
areas. So this
Yes,
is
sir.
the way you need to be target that areas. Fine,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's the first you need to see, and then those areas which you think is they are not suitable for electricity, a solar panel or solar energy. So we need to think about the alternative for them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we can propose. So we can like say like okay, we have established through our research. So these are not these areas are not the best candidate for the solar energy or solar panel. So we need to be discuss about whether they have wind energy or if they have any water body. So the hydro energy, small micro hydro projects, those kind of things we can see where the distribution and the transmission network can be reduced or limited ones.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay, so
Yes,
this
sir.
is the way we will need to be use this map to like include in the discussions.
Yes, sir. Fine.
Okay, so we are not talking about the way you describe the results, so people understand if they want to be reading the results, they can understand how to read this map and then the major patterns.
Mm-hmm.
But when you are going to be interpret those pattern in terms of the actual the your suggestions, what you are proposing, so that will be in the discussion section you are going to talk about. So now back to the discussions. Let's see. So you need a one paragraph where you're going to be discuss about how this map or different areas you can point it out on the map, and where you can like suggest advice or like kind of make some points for the interventions by different stakeholders.
Mm.
That could be the public, private, or those kind of things.
Okay.
Okay, so there is one more thing which you need to be discussed about, which is connecting to your future research. So limitation is another point where
Mm-hmm.
we are pointed out where the next research could be focused, and if they
Mm-hmm.
can address one of those in limitations, so it means they are running a new project.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing guys need to understand it. So if it's
Okay.
a continuity, the next thing is what new ideas you're generating it. So one of the idea we discuss, we need to be during our when we were talking about the results. So I think here we need to be propose it. So
Mm-hmm.
where the people have a small building footprints, oh sorry, small
Mm-hmm.
area, so which we call it like they have a smaller number of units. So what we can propose a community projects. So two or three buildings together can have a shared solar panel project. So that's we can
Mm-hmm.
discuss about the possibility. We are not going to be speak about the feasibility of that, but we are going to be raise this point. So further research need to be explored whether this kind of intervention or this kind of projects could be possible where the three or four household together have a solar panel project and
Mm-hmm.
they can sharing those electricity. Fine. So this is
Okay.
the way
Yes.
you're throwing few ideas and sensitizing the researchers to come up and try to be focus on this area. So it's not only the geospatial, now it's the sociology or other social work. So people need to be
Mm-hmm.
go into the communities where you think like this neighborhood, this union council have a small units and they have a better potential if they work together. So they want to be do a qualitative research, like they want to conduct a surveys, interviews, focus group discussions to get the sense whether people are in a position to have a joint projects.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. So it means
Yes.
this research is giving the ideas to the other discipline how they need to be run their projects.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if their paper, their findings are people are willing, so then we as the geospatial researchers can generate a identify the areas where we can replicate these kind of things. Fine.
Okay.
So this is the way
Okay.
the combination between the researcher from one discipline to the other. So one is giving some ideas, another is going to be take that ideas, establishing it through their own discipline, and then that findings we can use back into to giving them support. Okay, at the large scale, how many areas we have to focus on that. Okay.
Okay. Yes.
So guys, I think we have discussed like the layout of this discussion section, and then
Mm-hmm.
finally you need to add one or two concluding sentence, which we
Okay.
can say. You don't need to be say too many things, but establishing the concluding sentence, what is your final point,
Yes.
and that should be after the limitation. I would suggest, like if you want to read to the limitation, so the concluding point should be at the end of the that should be the last section.
Okay. So
Okay.
it should have a heading, or we will just write a sentence.
So the same style, first you will be using your own heading style just to
Mm-hmm.
remind yourself what you're going to be say in this section. And
Mm-hmm.
once we have like you started the writing, Abdullah and Nasir will be the uh, further strengthening this section. They have to be add new citations. We need a lot of citations here.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. So we need to be whatever the things we discuss in the introduction, we need to be going to be used here to make sure we are using those citations and adding more to make those whether our results are like in like follow some other results, other studies, or
Mm-hmm.
they are totally in a different context. We need to be relate our studies with other people's findings. Okay,
Okay.
so need a lot
Yes.
of recitations here, and each and everything need to be well discussed.
Okay.
Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
that's the point which when Abdullah and Asir will be reading this section, adding the new areas, and you can point it out areas where you think like you need a further help. So you have
Mm-hmm.
idea, but you cannot say those things, so they can help you to extend those areas. And finally, I'm going to be have a review. That will be the round first. So just want
Okay.
to remind you because we're writing one by one section, like each section separately. And then we
Mm-hmm.
have a second round. We will put all the documents together, all the section together, and going to be read it and want to make sure the flow of the document is same. So the same thing will be happen. Sitar, you going to be rude as the first author. You going to be the first attempt. You will
Mm-hmm.
be giving the final draft from your
Yes, sir.
side. Abdullah and Asir will be going to the next round, and then I'm going to be reading it for the last.
Okay.
And then we need a one more round. So we have almost two more rounds once we have a first draft. And then we want an opinion, like maybe Yusuf or somebody else can give a quick reading, and they will
Mm-hmm.
can see whether this overall things looks like in a flow or are we missing anything. Okay,
Okay.
once we this is the stage when we think okay now we are have a confidence, then the paper will be ready for the submission. Okay, then we will
Okay.
submit it. And as a leading author, Abdul Sattar, you are going to be submit that paper. I will help you how to submit that paper and prepare it and cover letters and those kind of things.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, guys, do you have anything you say?
No.
Okay, and Yusuf, you wanna add something?
No, sir, that's good.
Okay, thank you very much. And we will be regroup once we have the first draft, and we will discuss about how to be improve the document um, and the readability in the next session. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.